Have you ever had a moment where you realize life isn't happening to you, but responding through you? There was a time in my life when I felt like something was off, but I couldn't explain why. Nothing was visibly wrong. On the surface, everything looked the way it was supposed to look. But internally, something didn't sit right. And over time, I started to notice something deeper. It felt like I wasn't fully directing my life. It felt like I was being moved through it. Most people move through life with a quiet suspicion they don't always admit that something is influencing them. Their moods shift without warning. Their environment affects their energy. The opinions of others shape their decisions. And before they realize it, they are reacting more than they are choosing. In that state, you're not really living intentionally. You're responding. Like a pawn on a chessboard, reacting to moves you didn't consciously make. But what I've come to understand is this: that doesn't have to be the way you live. Ancient teachings, especially from texts like the Kybalion, present something different. They introduce the shift from being the effect of life to becoming the cause within it. Your reality is a mental architecture. One of the most powerful ideas I've come across is simple, but not easy to fully grasp. Reality is mental in nature. At first, that can sound abstract, but when you really begin to sit with it, you start to see it everywhere. The way you interpret situations, the way you react to circumstances, the way life feels is filtered through your internal state. Which means your external world is not separate from you. It reflects you. This is what's meant by as within, so without. Your life is not random. It is structured, like architecture. And your thoughts, your beliefs, your perception are the blueprints. So if something in your life feels off, you don't just look at the structure. You examine the design. I've also come to realize that fear and courage are not opposites. One of the most freeing realizations I've had is this: fear and courage are not opposites. They are the same thing at different levels. Like heat and cold. Not separate forces, just different degrees. Which means when you feel fear, you're not broken. You're not stuck. You're simply at a lower point on a scale. And that scale can be moved. Not through denial, not through pretending, but through awareness. Because once you recognize where you are, you can begin shifting. That's what real internal work is. And there's a rhythm that most people resist. And what I found is that another thing I had to learn the hard way is that life doesn't move in a straight line. There are highs, there are lows. There are seasons where everything flows, and seasons where everything feels heavy. But what most people try to do is avoid the lows. This is what I did for many years throughout my life. They try to stay in constant motion, constant productivity, constant positivity. But life doesn't work like that. There are winters in life, and those winters are not failures. They are necessary. They are where recalibration happens, where clarity forms, where energy restores. And when you stop resisting that, you stop suffering through it. So ask yourself, are you really choosing or just reacting? This was one of the hardest truths for me to face. Most of us believe we're making choices freely. But when you look deeper, you realize something uncomfortable. Many decisions are influenced by environment, conditioning, expectations, past experiences. So the question becomes, are you actually choosing or just continuing patterns? Because there's a difference. True freedom doesn't come from doing whatever you want. It comes from understanding why you want what you want. That's where your awareness becomes power. And there's an internal balance most people miss. Another thing I came to understand is that effort alone isn't enough. You can push, you can grind, you can force outcomes. But without balance, it leads to burnout. And on the other side, you can visualize, you can imagine, you can dream. But without action, nothing changes. There has to be a balance between doing and allowing, between effort and alignment. That's where real movement happens. Another thing I realized is that obstacles are not what you think. At one point, I saw obstacles as interruptions, as things getting in the way. But over time, that perspective changed. What I started to see is this: obstacles don't show up to stop you. They show up to shape you. They reveal patterns. They test your focus. They expose what needs to change internally. And most importantly, they help you define what you actually want. Without resistance, there is no refinement. So why visualization alone doesn't work? Well, there's a common idea that thinking something is enough to create it. That if you just visualize it, it will happen. But what I've learned is that's incomplete. Thought is the seed, but action is what allows it to grow. Without action, nothing materializes. And not just any action. Aligned action. Inspired action. That's what turns intention into reality. So in conclusion, you need to become the architect. What all of this ultimately led me to understand is something simple but powerful. You are not just living inside reality. You are participating in its creation. So in other words, you are the architect of your life, not the circumstances or other issues around you. Not in a mystical, abstract way, but in a very real, practical sense. Through your thoughts, through your perception, through your awareness, you influence how life unfolds for you. And the moment you realize that, everything changes. You stop waiting for life to shift. You start adjusting how you show up within it. So instead of asking, why is this happening to me? You begin asking, what am I creating? And what can I change within myself to shift it? Because your life is not fixed. It's being shaped. And whether you realize it or not, you are already part of that process. The question is, will you remain a pawn or begin learning how to play? Thank you for watching. Remember to please like, share, and subscribe. And comment below if this video resonated with you.